Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more heartfelt tales like this one. What if everything you believed about your life was built on a lie? What if the truth about your past could shatter the very foundation of your identity? In the bustling heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierce the sky like ambitious dreams, David Fowler sat in the corner booth of Le Chateau, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Manhattan. The ambient lighting cast a golden glow over the polished marble tables, and the soft murmur of elite conversations filled the air. David, at 28 years old, was the epitome of privilege. As the only son of Richard Fowler, a self-made billionaire whose empire spanned real estate, tech startups, and luxury brands, David had grown up in a world where money was no object. Private jets, yacht parties in the Mediterranean, and a penthouse overlooking Central Park were just everyday luxuries. He scrolled through his phone absent-mindedly, checking stock updates and replying to messages from his social circle. People who, like him, had never known a day of financial worry. David's life was a carefully curated masterpiece. He had attended the best schools, boarding in Switzerland, undergrad at Harvard, and an MBA from Stanford. Now he worked as a vice president in his father's company, Fowler Enterprises, overseeing mergers that could make or break fortunes. But beneath the surface of this perfect existence lurked a void he couldn't quite name, a sense that something was missing, though he dismissed it as the restlessness of youth. On this particular evening, he was dining alone, waiting for a business associate who was running late. The waiter had just refilled his glass of vintage Bordeaux when a woman approached his table. She was in her mid-50s, dressed in the simple black uniform of the restaurant staff, a waitress by the looks of it. Her skin was a rich ebony, her hair pulled back into a neat bun, and her posture exuded a quiet strength that contrasted with the subservient role she played. She carried a tray, but there were no plates on it. Instead, she set it down gently and fixed her gaze on David. "David Fowler," she said, her voice calm and steady, laced with a southern accent that hinted at roots far from the city's clamor. David looked up, mildly annoyed at the interruption. "Yes, can I help you?" "I'm your mother." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. David blinked, then let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Excuse me? That's a good one. Is this some kind of prank? Did one of my friends put you up to this?" He glanced around, half expecting to see a camera crew emerge from the shadows. Pranks were common in his world, elaborate setups funded by boredom and excess cash. But Jasmine didn't laugh. Her dark eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his amusement falter. There was no hint of jest in her expression, only a profound certainty mixed with the flicker of pain. "I'm not joking, David. I'm your mother, and your father has kept the truth from you your whole life." David's smile faded completely. He studied her face, the high cheekbones, the full lips that mirrored his own in a way he hadn't noticed before. A chill ran down his spine. "This isn't funny. Who are you really? And how do you know my name?" Jasmine glanced around the restaurant, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. The clatter of silverware and the hum of conversations provided a veil of privacy. "My name is Jasmine Thompson. I worked as a housekeeper for your father's family back in Atlanta when he was just starting out. We had a relationship. It was brief, passionate, but real. When I got pregnant with you, things changed. His family, your grandparents, they didn't approve. They saw me as beneath them, a black woman from the wrong side of town. Richard was ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder. They pressured him and me. I was paid off to disappear, to sign away my rights. But I've never forgotten you, David. I've watched from afar, waiting for the right moment." David's mind reeled. This couldn't be true. His mother, his real mother as he knew her, had died in a car accident when he was just a toddler. That's what his father had always told him. There were photos in the family album, a beautiful, elegant woman named Eleanor, with fair skin and blonde hair, smiling beside Richard at galas and vacations. Eleanor had come from old money, a perfect match for the Fowler legacy. "You're lying," David whispered, though his voice lacked conviction. "My mother is dead. This is insane. Get away from me before I call security." Jasmine didn't budge. She pulled a small, worn photo from her pocket and slid it across the table. It showed a younger version of herself holding a newborn baby. Him, David realized with a jolt. The resemblance was undeniable. The same curly hair, the same wide-set eyes. On the back, in faded ink, David, 1997, my little miracle. "She take this," she said softly.
Richard shrugged. Maybe she couldn't hold it in anymore. Or perhaps she needs something. Be careful, son. The warning ignited fresh anger. Need something? Like money? Is that all you see people as? Opportunities or threats? David stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Outside, the ocean waves crashed against the shore, mirroring the turmoil in his soul. That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling adorned with crystal chandeliers. His father's confession replayed endlessly. The affair, the payoff, the fabricated death. He had always believed his life was set in stone. The wealth that funded his art collection, the status that opened doors worldwide, the image of perfection drilled into him from childhood. But now, the truth hung like a heavy shadow over everything. Jasmine wasn't just a ghost from the past. She was his mother, and he had been living a lie all these years. The following morning, driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, David decided to meet Jasmine again. He texted the number she'd slipped him with the photo. "We need to talk. Cafe on 5th Avenue. His hand shook as he hit send. They met at a small, cozy cafe tucked away from the tourist throngs. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air, a stark contrast to the heaviness settling between them. David arrived first, nursing a black coffee, his mind racing with questions. When Jasmine walked in, she looked different, out of uniform, in a simple floral dress that accentuated her graceful figure. She carried a small purse, her steps measured but purposeful. She sat across from him, her eyes searching his face. "Thank you for reaching out, David. I know this is a lot." "So it's true," David said quietly, skipping pleasantries. "You're really my mother?" Jasmine nodded slowly, her hands folded in her lap. "Yes, David. I didn't want this. I didn't want to tell you this way. But I've spent so many years trying to get to you, trying to find a way to tell you the truth. Your father kept us apart. His family pressured me, offered me money to stay away, $100,000, which seemed like a fortune back then. I was scared, alone, 25 years old with no support. I thought it was best for you, to grow up in wealth with opportunities I could never provide." David's chest tightened, a knot of emotions unraveling. The image of his perfect family, his gilded upbringing, shattered with every word. "But why? Why didn't you fight for me? I've been living a lie. I've spent my whole life thinking I had this perfect family, and now I find out that the man I've looked up to all these years is the one who kept me from you." Jasmine sighed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I tried, David. I truly did. But when you're a young, black woman with no power, no voice, and a rich white man's family standing in your way, what can you do? Your grandparents threatened legal action, said they'd paint me as unfit. Richard, he chose his path. I made the decision to let you go so you could have a better life, even if it meant sacrificing my own. I moved to Chicago, got my nursing degree eventually, but every birthday, every holiday, I thought of you. I clipped newspaper articles about your father's success, wondering if you were happy. David's heart ached at her words. She wasn't angry or bitter. She was simply unveiling a truth buried for decades. The pain in her voice was raw, unfiltered, a mother's love denied. I never asked for this, Jasmine continued, her voice steady despite the emotion. But you were my son, and I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you. When I saw you in the restaurant, pure chance.
Richard didn't look up immediately, his pen scratching across a document. What's on your mind, son? Make it quick. I have a conference call in 10. David took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of aged leather and cigar smoke. A woman approached me at Le Chateau. Her name is Jasmine. She says she's my mother. Is that true? Richard's hands stilled. For a split second, his composed mask cracked, a brief flicker of tension crossing his chiseled features. He set down the pen and leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers. David, I never wanted you to know about that. It's complicated. Complicated? David's voice rolls, echoing off the walls. She showed me a photo, Dad, of her holding me as a baby. You told me Mom, Eleanor, died in a car accident. Was that a lie? Richard sighed, his eyes meeting David's for the first time. They were full of unspoken regret, shadows of decisions long buried. Eleanor wasn't your biological mother, son. She was my wife, yes, and she loved you like her own after we married when you were 2. But Jasmine, she and I had a brief affair back in Atlanta. I was young, ambitious, just out of college. She was working for my parents. When she got pregnant, my family, your grandparents, they saw it as a scandal. Interracial relationships weren't as accepted then, especially in our circles. They pressured us both. I paid Jasmine to stay away, to sign adoption papers. Eleanor and I raised you as ours. The car accident story, it was to protect you, to give you a clean slate. David felt the ground shift beneath him, as if the mansion's foundations were crumbling. His heart pounded like a war drum, blood rushing in his ears. Everything he knew, his identity, his place in this world was now in question. You knew all this time, he whispered, his voice cracking with betrayal. You let me believe a lie. Why? Because she was black? Because she didn't fit your perfect image? Richard nodded solemnly, his shoulders sagging under the weight of years. I made mistakes, son. I was weak. My parents threatened to cut me off if I acknowledged you publicly with her. I chose the path of least resistance, the money, the legacy. But I've regretted every day. You're my son, David. That's what matters. A wave of anger surged through David, hot and unrelenting. He slammed his fist on the desk, scattering papers. Regret? That's all you have? You've built an empire on lies. I grew up idolizing you, thinking we were unbreakable. But you're just a coward who hid the truth to save face. Confusion mingled with the fury, loss for the mother he never knew, grief for the fabricated past. I need to know everything, Dad, David demanded, his eyes burning. No more secrets. Richard rubbed his temples, looking older than his years. It started in 1996. I was 31, working for my father's firm. Jasmine was 25, beautiful, kind-hearted. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, but life had other plans. We fell in love, or what felt like love. When she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. My parents arranged everything. A payout of $100,000 to Jasmine, legal papers making me sole guardian. She left Atlanta, moved to Chicago. I married Eleanor a year later. She couldn't have children, so you became our world. The car accident story was Eleanor's idea, to avoid questions as you grew older. David paced the room, his mind a whirlwind. The study, once a sanctuary of power, now felt like a prison. Did you ever think about her? About what you did to us? Every day, I admitted quietly.
I hired private investigators to check on her over the years. She's had a hard life, waitressing, single, no other children. But she never broke the agreement, never contacted you until now." David stopped pacing, tears stinging his eyes. Why now? Why did she come to me?